Hi, I'm going to do a skill called Cope Ahead, a DBT skill to help us during COVID-19 lockdown. My name is Anneke Jonas. I'm an occupational therapist in mental health. OTs will work with people during this time to develop strategies to facilitate continued access to the activities important to them while in lockdown. The Cope Ahead of time with emotional situations skill is quite important if you think of 3 weeks ahead that we don't really know what to expect. It's important because we can rehearse a plan ahead of time, that we are prepared as much as possible for threats. And those threats can be to the status quo of life as we know it. The first step is to describe a situation that is likely to create negative emotions. Be specific in describing the situation. Check the facts. You can name the emotions and thoughts you are likely to experience in the situation. The next step would be that you decide what skills you want to use in the situation. Be specific, and it will be helpful if you can write them out. And then to imagine the situation in your mind as vividly as possible, as if you are in the situation now. Rehearse coping effectively in your mind. Exactly what you could do to cope effectively. Rehearse your actions, your thoughts, what you say, and how to say it. It's also important to troubleshoot, to rehearse coping with problems that might arise, or even the worst case scenario. I have an example. My young adult daughter is staying with me for 3 weeks during lockdown. She has a history of not cleaning up, and when confronted, she is argumentative about it. It is very difficult to reason with her. She is quite good with excuses, and I get very angry usually, and then I withdraw, and there's a lot of tension. And I don't want that to happen because we end up speaking or not speaking for many days. If that's your situation, for example, I think we've been quite specific in describing the situation. We check the facts because my previous experience to confirm that that tends to happen. Name the emotions. Well, I said that I'm going to be angry. I think also quite anxious or being frustrated. And then I might be feeling guilt because usually when it happens, I have guilt feelings. I say things that I didn't mean or that I feel bad about later that were hurtful and possibly harmful. If I think about that and I need to decide what skills I would be using, one thing that definitely pops up is it's a relationship issue. And when we talk about relationship issues, the Dear Man Give Fast skill comes up. Now that's a skill that you might not be aware of, and I'm not going to run through the whole skill. What I might want to draw on in this situation is to be fair towards me and fair towards her. She's young, she likes to mess around, and she'd like to have her own space. So maybe to be fair in terms of create your own space where you can make a mess, but the areas where the rest of us need to operate, it needs to be clean and it needs to be kept clean. Also to be mindful during a relationship issues, to not react to attacks or to insults, and stay mindful of what your goal is. The goal is to stay amicably for a number of weeks together where we all work together in having a space that's helpful, that's enjoyable, that makes us feel content, etc. Another thing that pops up for me is to negotiate, a midway where both parties feel that there's a good outcome. Sometimes we negotiate to a space where we both sacrifice something, but we also gain something. It's also important to have a gentle approach. Gentle means to not sneer, to not attack, to not be nasty, to not be sarcastic, to be kind in the situation. You can use a half smile, not showing your teeth, and willing hands, which is your open hands, when you have the conversation, because it gives the impression that you are open to also hearing the other side of the situation. The other skill that I can use here is problem solving. Problem solving in terms of the space is not clean. I get frustrated. She gets frustrated when I fight with her. So maybe if we have a schedule in place and we take turns, or we have certain areas that we are responsible for, that might work. So to problem solve with my daughter might be a good option to get to that midway that we are looking for. I also might need to use the stress tolerance skills. The stress tolerance skills are typically those that would help me to feel less anxious and that would calm me down so that I am not distressed when I talk to her, but that I'm calm, content, and in control of my own emotions. It might be that I use deep breathing. It might be that I just take a quick walk around the house before I have the conversation so that I can ground myself before I talk to her. So once you've decided what skills you're going to use, you then imagine the situation as vividly where you use the skills and walk through the whole situation of approaching my daughter, talking to her, for example, and having good outcomes. I rehearse coping effectively with the skills that I've mentioned. I rehearse my actions, what my face looks like, what my hands and my body language look like. I also rehearse my thoughts. Thoughts might be she's trying the best she can. She's only a young adult. She's out of her normal space, so I need to respect that. Also, in terms of what I say, to rehearse what I would say over and over again might be helpful to write it down. And then when I rehearse it, it's easier. And then also how to say it, it's quite important. It's not always what we say, but how we say it. I also need to then go and say, but what's the worst possible outcome? It might be that she shouts at me, that she hates me and storms out of the gate, walk in the street. And the risk currently is that she might get infected, or the police might arrest her, or something serious like that. So once I've gone through all of that, I might feel distressed, and it's important then to use some relaxation techniques. So that's one example. Another example is I tend to have a low mood. I get depressed easily, and when I feel low, I stay in bed all day. I can stay all day in bed in my pajamas and don't really care who cooks and who sorts the kids. So if that's what I tend to do, that would be checking the facts. I might tweak it a little bit here and there and take the assumptions and the interpretations out of it and check the facts. And then emotions that I might be experiencing in that situation. Well, I've mentioned depression or low mood, guilt, some anxiety, whatever it might be. It might also be shame that I might be feeling. And then I need to look at the situation and then decide on the skills that I'm going to use. One skill that pops into mind is the opposite action skill. When I feel depressed, or when we feel depressed, the opposite action for that is to activate, to do something functional. And usually to engage in an enjoyable activity can be quite helpful. So I might then use opposite action. I might also use some distraction skills to go and do an activity, or self-soothing skills, do an activity that self-soothe me while I feel depressed. So it might be taking a warm bath, putting some bubble bath, or putting on a face mask, or wearing favorite clothes, or eating a favorite food, etc., etc. And then I need to imagine the situation as vividly as possible. So I imagine how I want to go and lie in bed, and how my face is drooping and I'm really just not feeling great and I just want to get into bed. And then where I actually do opposite action, put on a tracksuit, put on some comfortable shoes and walk around the house, or walking up some stairs to activate me, or get out and go and do some cooking or baking something, and do something with my family. And then rehearsing that, my actions, my thoughts, what I say and how I say it, instead of sounding droopy, to sound a bit more upbeat, and rehearse coping also with something that might arise. So I'm trying the best, and then someone walks in and say, "Oh, you really look droopy and the pain in the butt," and how we would then cope with that situation that might make it even worse. What is important is to cope ahead by planning. So already I know that it might be tough for me because I have anxiety or I have depression. So if I plan, the chances of me being ambushed by emotions would be less. So the suggestion is to create a schedule of activities that will help you have positive experiences in your day. And so if you're feeling depressed or unmotivated, it might be difficult to complete huge, complex tasks. And therefore, smaller tasks might be more helpful. And you can work your way up to more challenging activities. So to create a schedule of activities that can be helpful, it is another skill, but I'm going to mention it briefly. It might be some mild exercise, some stretches, a yoga video that you put on or that you watch on YouTube. It might be making sure that you cook at least one good, wholesome meal in the day, that you do something with your kids and that you do something with your partner or husband. It might be another activity of enjoyable, like building a puzzle or doing some crafts, or doing a cognitive activity like Sudoku or anything like that. The principle is, if we don't plan, it's not as likely that it's going to happen. So by planning it, it's more likely that it's going to happen. So if we aim for a good mood or a more pleasant mood, then we would add more pleasant activities so that we can get that outcome. I think often people fantasize to have certain outcomes, but not realizing that they need to do something to get the outcomes that they're looking for. So, and this is quite easy things to do to get the outcome of a positive mood or a more pleasant mood during the next few weeks. So think what activities are pleasant to you that will give you some positive experiences, and start planning those in your day. So this is what a activity schedule might look like. It might be to get up at a certain time in the morning and make sure that you eat a full breakfast. Afternoon, go for a 15-minute walk, do a creative activity, play with your kids, or play with your animals. Pets are a great activity to soothe yourself and to lift your mood. And then to possibly call a friend and practice a music instrument or something that you want to get better at. So those things to plan during your week. I didn't do a very intricate schedule of having it by the hour, since we are on lockdown and people are more restful. I want to just mention binge watching series, etc. Those are good activities as well, but it might end up in us looking back on our day and realizing we haven't done anything functional. We haven't had a proper meal because we watched movies or series all day. There's a place for it, definitely. Um, I had a good example. Someone mentioned a trick or a hack that they do to prevent them from doing that, and that's to put something in the oven, switch on the TV, watch series, and then you have to get up to go and get the meal out of the oven or to get the washing out of the washing machine, etc. So it does create some routine and not get you to totally disappear into series and movies all day. So to get back to the cope ahead skill, it helps us to plan ahead, to look out for possible difficulties we might have, and to actually make sure that we have pleasant activities during the next few weeks.